Boch, we're learning as a schus for Shlema, Filana Chaya Basarach, and as a Aliyah for the Neshama Meir ben Elazar. We're on Daf Ayin Beis, Amid Beis. We just saw the Mishnah. The part of the Mishnah that we are going to be talking about now is right at the beginning. We said a behemoth that's having difficulty giving birth, and as part of the birth pangs, the part of the issues is the uber, the fetus inside of the behemoth, sticks out its hand. So we said if the behemoth, if the uber stuck out its hand, and you cut it off, and then afterwards you shecht it, then the basar is going to be tahar. Because the basar of the uber and of the mother were both alive before this aver was cut off. You can't be matama. It doesn't make a difference. Even if a dead person was on a behema, a live behema is not susceptible to becoming tummy. It's incapable of becoming tummy. So that's a simple enough case. The problem is the other way around. If you if the uber sticks out a leg or a hand, an aver, and then afterwards you shecht
You're
the mother.
frozen again.
I'm sorry. Then you shecht the mother, and then finally the last thing is you cut off the leg. So the leg was attached at the time after the shechita. Once you shechted the animal, the mother, so both the fetus, both the uber, as well as the behemoth, they went from being live animals, which are not capable of becoming tameh, to being food, which can become tameh.
What are we holding?
We are on Daf Ayin Beis Amid Beis, but I'm just recapping the relevant part of the Mishnah right now on Ayin Beis Amid Aleph. So the question in the Mishnah is, if you have a mother, a female behemoth, a cow, that has an uber inside of it, it's pregnant, and that uber stuck out its leg from the womb, and it's sticking out, and then you shechted the mother, and that following that you cut off that aver. The question is, that aver is essentially aver menachai. Aver menachai has the same status as nevela as far as being tameh. It's metama. So the question is it metama the uber, and is it metama the mother? So that we have a machlekes in the Mishnah. The Mishnah said, "Shachar es imay ba'acha chadcha habasa magen avela." Divrei Rameya. Rameya says this aver that was sticking out has the status of nevela. It's really an aver menachai, but it's the status of nevela. The shechita does not stop it from becoming nevela. It wasn't inside of the mother at the time of the shechita, so it becomes nevela, and it's metama the uber. It was attached to the uber, so it's metame. Chachamim say no, it's a lower level of tumah. As we're going to see in the Gemara, it's only going to have the level of tumah of a treifa. Now, a treifa is not really tameh. As we're going to see in the Gemara, well, we'll just assert this, that if you have kachim that were found to be a treifa, they are tameh midrabanan. But so that's the level of tumah you're going to have. You're not going to have more tumah than that. And then the Gemara goes through, which is really relevant, but we're not going to do it at this minute. The Gemara then goes through, where does this come from? The sheet of the Chachamim, that this chaticha is not going to become tameh. It's only going to be tameh like a treifa, not like a evim and a chay and a vela. And we learn it out from treifa. Treifa is only metama, like we said, if it's b'mukdashin. So this is also not going to be a din of nevela. It's only going to have the tumah of a treifa. And Meir asked on that, why should that be? The din of treifa, that it's when you shech the treifa, it doesn't become a nevela, but it becomes a treifa. because it's talking about the animal itself. But the uber is a separate thing. It shouldn't become tar. So then we say, yeah. So then we go into then the Mishnah went into where do we get this from that shechting a treifa doesn't make it into an avela. We were machalik. Chachamim gave the reason why the din of treifa. Well, they gave the reason that the Chacham wanted to say it should be like a treifa when you have, and Rameir was machalik. He said it should be different than a treifa because treifa is not a treifa is the gufa, and this aver is on something that's separated, so it shouldn't have the din. It should be shouldn't become mutter with the shchita. Therefore, it should be us. And then the Mishnah goes on to tell us where the whole din that a treifa is not, a shchita's treifa is not going to become an avela. Okay, now we're going to see the Gemara. Zok the Gemara. Amai. Back to the first din that we said Rameir and the Chachamim argue about a mother animal with a uber inside of it with an aver of that uber sticking out, that and then you shechted the animal and afterwards you cut off that chaticha, that you machatach that aver. Rameir says it's going to be Tamei Tumas Nevela, and the Chum said it's only Tamei Tumas Treifa, meaning under very limited circumstances.
So were you holding earlier? I'm sorry.
Starting the Gemara on Ayin Beis Amid Beis. The Gemara is now asking both the Chachamim and Reb Meir. Reb Meir says it's Tamei Tumas Nevela. Chum say it's Tamei Tumas Treifa. The Gemara says neither of them should it be Tamei. Tumas Beis Asarim he. There's a different, regardless of whether this aver that was cut off is considered to be an avela or a treifa or whatever it is, it was never brought to touch the uber. It was just attached to it, and being attached is something called overbay. It's tumas basis asarim. It's a tuma in something that's not exposed. The tumas basis asarim loy metama. The general rule is that something touching in a covered area is not metama, which is not the same thing that we've been talking about before. We talked about something that is enclosed. We brought it up before in those. We said that something that is enclosed, it doesn't get tuma from something else. Now we're talking about the different thing, that a maga touching a tuma touching something else, where the touching is not in an exposed area, is not considered a touching. So Gemara, but this is not so clear. This din of tumas beisam. Leima remeila tamei. Maybe this is remeila shitasa that he holds tumas beisasarim, a hidden tuma is metama. The Tanan. Shloish al shoisha shenechlak. The din is that there's a special tumas midras, a zav who lies down on something even without touching it, but her weight rests on something that is a type of thing that is made for resting on, like a mattress or a mat. So that thing becomes tamei tumas midras, which is a very chamerdika tuma. It becomes like the zav herself. It's a ava tuma. But in order for something to be able to be mekama tumas midras, it has to be shloish al shloish. It has to be 3 tvachim by 3 tvachim. Any less than that, it's not something that you can lie on. It's not like a mattress or a mat, and it's not subject to tumas midras. So if you had something shloish al shloisha that a zav had rested on, so it became tamei midras as an ava tuma shenechlak, but then you cut this 3 tefach by 3 tefach thing in half. So now it's only 1.5 tefach by 3 tvachim. Tar min ha-midras. It becomes tar from the midras since it's no longer capable. It's not a receptacle that is capable of. It's not susceptible to tumas midras. The tumas midras goes away. Avol tamei maga midras, but it's tamei because it touched the midras. Meaning, before you cut it, it was a midras, and each half is considered to have touched the midras because it was touching itself. Divrei Reb Meir. This is a sheet of Reb Meir. So you see, this tuma that was there of a maga midras was a tumas basis asarim. He said it's touching itself. It's obviously not exposed. That's inside of this 3 by 3, the originally 3 by 3 mat. So you see, Rameir holds that there is tuma in Beis Asar. Betanya, however, Amar Rabbi Yosi, v'chibeis midrash nagazeh. He says, how is this touching a midrash? Meaning that it only was considered to touch after it was opened up. After it was cut in part, so then it's no longer Beis Asarim. But at that point, it's no longer midrash. So therefore, it doesn't get the tumah of midrash. Elashim naga zav sheyehei tamei magazav. He says the only tumah here is if the zav who was standing on the midrash, let's say the isha or the man was a zav and he sat on the midrash and he stood on the midrash and his flesh was exposed and it touched the mat. So touching, you don't have to depend on the din of midrash, which is a rishon l'tumah, but it becomes a zav. It becomes tamei touching a zav, which is a lower level of tumah. It becomes a rishon, but that it still is there. So l'chayra, the Gemara is bothered that our Mishnah should be limited to be only like Reb Meir in this shita. We said that this is both both Rameh and the Chachamim were saying that it would become Tameh to different levels, either like an Avelu or a Zav in our Mishnah. But now we're limiting it that it's only if you hold like Reb Meir that Thomas Beis Sarm is going to be a Tameh. So Gemara Lavitma Law Amar Ula says no. That which we say that there's limitations, that it's not going to become tamei. Rameir says it will become tamei. And Rabbi says it won't become tamei through midrash. That's only if you have something that's exactly shloish al shloish shenech. Avol sholosh al sholosh habois beged begadol. But if let's say you had something that was 10 tefachim by 10 tefachim, and you cut off a section of it that's shalosh al shalosh. So what's left is still a beged that's tamei midrash. B'shas b'shasam aviyim mekabos tuma me'aviyim. In that case, Rabbi Yosi would agree that it is mekabel tuma, a tumas midrash, to become a tamei from a tumas midrash, and therefore will become tamei from alta midrash. And hanami b'shas b'shasam aviyim mekabel tuma me'aver. So over here, we're not depending on the tumas beis asarim, the connection that was there before it was cut apart. We're saying that as you cut it apart, during the cutting process, you're exposing the connection between them, but they're still touching. So at that point, you have a tumas that's not beis asarim, that even Rabbi Yosi would agree in our Mishnah that it will become tamei. You don't have to depend on the tumas beis asarim, and it doesn't have to be only according to Rabbi Meir. Ravina has a different way of addressing this problem of the tumas beis asarim. Baged lav l'chaticha kai. The reason why Rabbi Yosi said over there that it's not going to become tamei when you split apart a beged that was exactly 3 tvachim by 3 tvachim is because that taka remains a tumas beis asarim that can't become tamei. Over l'chaticha kai. He says that this is different over here. While it's true that a tumas beis asarim is not metama, this is not really a tumas beis asarim. It's not a hidden tumah, since this is an aver that's sticking out of the mother. Eventually, it's going to be cut off. So therefore, we treat it as if it's already cut off and it's not considered to be hidden. Kiman, who is this like Rameh? This is like Rameh, the Tan. Kol yadas hakelim shein aruchad va'asal lekatsan. Any yad of a kli that became tamei, and you have to be table them in a mikveh in order to be matar them. If it has a handle that is longer than is necessary, and eventually you're going to cut them off. You only have to be table up to the part that you're planning to keep. The part that you're planning to take off as if it's already off. The Chum say until he's table the whole thing. So you see, again, we're back to the same problem that l'chayra, this din of kol shechatuch, also it's kol lachtach, is kechatuch dami is only going to remain, not like the chachamim. That was our whole problem. That beis asarim is only going to remain, not according to Rabbi Yosi, how we have improved things. So Mafil Tein Rabbanon. You could even say according to Rabbanon who say that you have to be toivel even the parts that you're intending to cut off. Tibura Eichlin command them farsi dami. Nigie bahadodi. Unigi bahadodi. He says something that it's a different thing over here that when you have an aver that's food, that's considered as if kachatach dami. Because since it's food that's going to be cut apart, that we treat as if it's already cut apart, and therefore it's treated like it's touching. But the case of the kli, which is not an oichel, then it has to actually be cut according to the chachamim. But it's not just according to Rameh. We can understand our Mishnah even according to the chachamim over there, who say you have to be toivel the whole thing. That's because it's not an oichel. But in our case of an oichel, we would treat it as if it's not beis hasasar. According to Ula, the way he had answered, we understand why the Mishnah said that you cut off the aver, and then it's going to become tummy. According to Ravina, it says anything that's oimid lachtach, it's kechatach tummy. It should already be tummy now, because eventually you're going to cut it, as if it's already cut, and the tumah went from the over into the aver. We don't really need that you cut it off in order for it to become tummy. In the first case, we have to say that if you cut it off, it doesn't become tummy because it was only touching the animal while it was alive. It wasn't makabel tumah. But in the sefer, we really doesn't make a difference whether you chaytech or not. The aver is going to become tummy from the uber. But we just said chatchak since we had to say that in the reish. So we said. So then we started. The Chacham and the Reb Meir disagreed about whether this aver becomes tamei. Reb Meir says it becomes tamei tumas nevela. The Chacham say it only becomes tamei tumas treifa. So the Chacham are maga treifa shchuta. Practically more treifa shchuta mi metamis. What's the tumah? The Chacham is saying it also has a tumah. It has a tumah of a treifa. What does that mean? A treifa is not metama. A nevela is tummy. A treifa is only a treifa. There's no din. The Torah doesn't discuss the tumah of a treifa. So we're in Kedavu Shmuel, Damavu Shmuel, treifa shachta metama b'mukdashim. A treifa. When you shech a treifa, you're not totally off the hook. But like Rashi says, midrabanan, if that treifa was kachim, it's going to get a din tumah. You're not going to be allowed to bring it as a carbon, and it's going to be usher, even though treifa can't be brought anyway. But it'll have a tumah that you're going to have to stay away from. If you're a kohen won't be allowed to eat it. Zaktumar. So then we continued, right? The Mishnah had said that the reason why Reb Meir said that it becomes tamei because it's an avela, and the Chacham said no, it only becomes a treifa. Just why does it become a treifa? Ma'amatzinu b'treifa. Let's see. We said in the Mishnah, Ma'amatzinu b'treifa shchitas tarasa af shchita behema tetarasa over. This they hold that this uber that's attached, the aver of this uber that's attached. Right? They changed the word uber to aver. This aver that's attached to the uber, it gets the same thing as a treifa. It only has this very limited tumah of a treifa. Tanya, Amal and Remeir, v'chimi tiaru le'aver zeh midei nevela. What was it that was matar this aver? Right? This aver was really an aver menachai. So why is it just being downgraded to just the din like a treifa? Shchita simai. It's because you shechted the mother. So we say this shchita of the mother is effective enough to downgrade the tumah of the aver that should only be like a treifa. So Rameir says, if you hold that the shchita works for the aver, why is it just making it that it's not metama? Let it work all together. Let it make it like the mother and the uber. That it should be this aver should also be amota b'achila. The Chacham said back to Rameir, Harba matzelos al she'ena gufa yoyse mi gufa. we often find such a thing. It's not so hard to understand that something that is not part of its guf could be more mutter than something that is part of the guf. Where do we see that? If someone sticks a knife into, this is all very disgusting, I apologize. But if someone sticks a knife into the womb of the animal and cuts off a piece of the uber and leaves it inside of the mother, when you shech the mother, it becomes mutter b'achila. We saw this in the previous Mishnah. Something that's not part of the animal, it means the tchol, the spleen, and the kidneys. Once you cut them off, they're nothing to do with this animal anymore. They become asur b'achila. My comment, the Gemara says, what did we just answer? This whole shach did not really make sense. He said, why would you matter with, Rameya said you should be matter if you hold that the shechita is effective on the vlad, on the aver, to make it that it's not tamei, it should also make it mutter b'achila. So he said we find that a nafkamina between something that's part of the guf and something that's not. Well, how is that responsive? So my comment, Amar Rava v'amila kedi, either Rava or was said without anyone's name, chasurim mechser v'hachik. This is missing a whole part of the conversation. This starts off the same like we started off before. The shchita of the mother is what's being mitaher, this aver, that it's no longer an avela. So he said, if though, so it should be mutter b'achila, which the Chum don't disagree. They agree that the aver is also b'achila. Amruloi treifa techiach. No, I'll prove from a treifa that it's not necessarily the case. Something doesn't, just because it becomes no longer tamei as nevela, it could still be asur b'achila. If you have a treifa, an animal that's a treifa, if you hit it over the head with a hammer, it becomes an nevela. But if you shecht it, now it's no longer an avela. It means before you shechted it, it had a din of avim and achai, if you ate a piece of it. But now that you shechted it, it's mitare. So you see that a shchita can be mitare from tumas nevela without being matar b'achila. So Ramey says the same. So Chum say to Ramey, that's the same thing that happens to this aver that's sticking out. Amalahen, Ramey answered back to them, Loyam tirish chitas treifa isa dava she gufa tatara se'eva dava she'ena gufa. He said to them, that doesn't make any sense. How could you bring a raya from treifa that it's mitar from the vela without being matir? That's because the treifa is talking about the animal itself, the thing that you actually shechted. But you want to extend this and say that it even goes on the aver that's not part of the guf. No, we have an example where something that's not gufay could be more tar than something that's begufa. Like we said in the previous Mishnah. So that is the response to the Chachamim's raya, or I shouldn't say the raya. So this is a response to Reb Meir's kasha, that how could you say something that's maybe something that begufa can't be learned from a treifa? We said no, something that's outside of the guf is even more reason to be metared. Tanya nami hachi, and we have a brisa to confirm this. This what we've just said, this explanation, where we have a brisa that pretty much fills in the blanks, the parts that we had said needed to be added in. What's being mitayr, this aver that's sticking out with the shchita of the mother from the vela? So they said the shchita sima. So they asked the question like we just said, that if once it's no longer tamei tumas nevela, it should also become mutar b'achila, and it's not. It's also b'achila. That when you shech a treifa, it's matara from the veil of ein matirasa b'achila, but it doesn't come mutar b'achila. Amlahem im tiara shchitas treifa oisa. If just because we see by a treifa that shechting the treifa is matarit as well as ve'eva hamadoldaba, as well as being mitar, and this is the crucial words that are added in. We're gonna have to follow up this string over the next amud or so. As well as if you have an aver this is not an aver coming from an uber, from a fetus, but rather this is an aver of the actual animal that you're shechting. So if you have an aver that is attached to the animal, but it's not what do you call it's not capable of regrowing or reattaching itself. So if you have such an aver that's hanging like this, so we say, if you shech that aver, that animal, it becomes tummy tumas eichlin, but it's not tummy tumas nevelis. Now, so you see the same thing like we said by the treifa, that it's becoming mutter from the tumas nevela, but still also to eat. Davar shegufa titar. So it was im tihar tashchitas treifa oisa v'esa eva madoldoba davar shegufa, that which is the davar that's part of the guf. Titar esa over she'ena gufa. How do you know that it should also be mitar the uber, which is not the gufa? Amalei haber matel she'ena gufa yoisa begufa she'shnu chaydach med over she'meya muta ba'achila med chol med klois asa ba'achila. So it's really the exact same shak of attire that we had before, but we gratuitously threw in addition to saying the din of the treifa itself, that it becomes no longer asur benevela, but it's still asur to eat. We say a aver hamidoldol, an aver that's hanging, is going to have a similar treatment. It's not going to have the tumah of, even though it really is, one would say it's like an aver minachai, but we're saying it's not going to have that status of being tamei as an avela as aver minachai, because it's still attached, and when you shech the animal, it will be asur b'achila, but it's not going to have the din of nevela. The shita will be sufficient to remove the din nevela. So, Amr Shimon Lakish, k'machloikis be'ovrin kach machloikis be'ivrin. This machlokes that we had between Rameh and the Chachamim about the aver sticking out of an uber, that Rameh says it has a tumas nevela, and the Chachamim said it only is tamei like a treifa, and then we had the whole discussion in the Mishnah, their argument, and then we have all these prices that sort of hashed out the machlokes. The same machlokes will apply by an aver that's medoldol. They'll have the same machlokes. Reb Meir says it is metama like nevela, and the Chum say it's not. V'yechanama machlokes be'ever the over. He says that the machlokes of our Mishnah, that's only by an aver that's sticking out of an uber. But by an aver of behema that's medoldol, an aver that's slightly attached, everyone agree that when you shecht it, it's going to be like Rameir said, it's going to be ice and nipple, it's going to be treated as if it was detached. Rashi says, ice and nipple, b'shashchita hareyu k'noifel mimenu. It's as if it got detached from the original behemoth, and shchitasa me'elisloi. And the shchita is not going to help for it, it's not going to become, it's going to remain an aver minachai and have a din nevel.
So in the previous brisa, where Meir told them im tiara shchitus treifa isa ves ever hamadodol by,
the Gemara is going to ask this question in a minute. Yeah, you're 100% right. It just switched gears.
Yeah, I'm like, right, either I'm missing something in that brisa, or
you're right on the mark.
Thank you.
Amr Rav Yossi bar Chanina, my time at the Rabbi Yochanan aliba the Rabbanan. How is Rabbi Yochanan understanding the Rabbanan, right? Rabbi Yochanan said, the first Mandama said it's the same machlokes said both. Rabbi Yochanan said that be'eva de behema, everyone says it's no good. Even the Rabbanan who argued on Rav Meir over here will say that this is going to be an Ever Menachai, it's going to be Tomei like an Avela. So what's the reason of the Rabbanan? Hai is leitakanta b'chazara Well, less like b'chazara. There'll be mechalik between the aver of an uber, since according to Rabbi Yochanan, if the aver goes back, and we had this in the previous few blot, that Rabbi Yochanan holds if the aver goes back in, the shechita will help for it. So therefore, it doesn't become tamei tumas nevela. But this aver hamadodol obviously is not reversible. So therefore, according to the Rabbanan, that's the reason why they'll say over there it's tamei tumas nevela. Meisvei, so they asked the question that Luzi just asked. Amalahem Remeir, loy imtiar shchita troy loy imtiar shchitas treifa oisa vesa eva hamadodo. Didn't we say the shchita of a treifa is limitar it as well as the eva hamadodo? It's not going to be treated as nevela. But according to Rabbi Yochanan, we just said, according to everyone, it is tamei, like a tumas as a nipple. It's going to be treated as a Eva Menachai, going to have an Isin available. Davash Shagufa to Taras over that's a Eva Hamadul, Davash Shagufa to Taras over Davash Aina Gufa. You should certainly be mitar. It's just quoting the Brisa that we said that the Aver Hamadul is like the treifa itself. And we were asking the question, therefore, if that's something Shebagufa, that it's not going to become tamei. Certainly, something that's ain't a gufa shouldn't become tamei. So Zaktamar Bishlam Rav Shimon ben Lakish. According to the first version, we had said that it's the same machlokes between Ramei and the Chachamim, both by an aver sticking out of a uber and by the aver hamadoldol from a behema. L'dveim karmelahu. In that you can understand that Rameir was just making the argument according to the Rabban. He disagrees with them, but he says, you say that Eva Hamadoldol is not going to become Tamei Tumas Nevela, but that's, as well as obviously the Aver that comes out of an Uber, that's something that's part of the Behemoth itself. But how could that apply? Those are things that Davasha Begufa. How could you say that applies? Certainly something that's not Begufa. How could you say, right? He says, Lididi loishna eved over loishna eved behema. Both of them are going to be Thomas Nevela. Ki adodinin. El Rabbi Yochanan kasha. So that's according to, he's just saying, according to this, Reb Meir is just saying Lashitas of the Chacham. El Rabbi Yochanan, according to Rabbi Yochanan, says that they both hold that it's going to be Tamei Tumas Nevela. So they both hold it's not. How do you understand that which Reb Meir said that it is Matama by Gufa, and therefore you should certainly be Matama. How could you say that something this is not Matama and something that's a Aver is Matama? So tomorrow Eli Itmar, so you have to change it. Eli Itmar Hachi Itmar. Rav Shimon ben Lakish k'machlokes bevarim kach machlokes be'evrim. Rav Lakish stays the same. Yechanama machlokes be'ever the over. The machlokes between the Meir and the Chacham and Mistaka only by an aver that's sticking out of an over. Alvu be'ever the behema, but the aver hamadoldol by a behema. Everyone will agree in that case that it's not going to be, it's not going to become tamei, and therefore Rameir's question is very sensible. He says if Dava Sheba Gufa is not matama, then so what is his argument? I just have to get myself straight.
I thought Rav Meir's question was, in other words, how can you compare? In other words,
right. The point is that how can you say if it's not part of the mother's body,
right?
That it's not going to become that you're saying it is the shechita is mitaret, then how could you say you have to be maskim that the aver of the uber should not become tar from the mother's shechita since it's not part of the mother's guf.
Right, but the whole question was that we did see that he was saying that Eva Medolgo is tahar? And
Right.
that was the question.
And we're saying taka ena chanami, ena oisanifel, and it's taka naka become tar, so it's all sensible. We don't have a stira from the earlier brisa to the shita that was saying now b'shem Remeir and the chacham. But in any case, the bottom line is that we're saying now, according to the final interpretation, that Rabbi Yochanan says everyone agrees that the Ever Hamadulda Eina Oisa Nipul, it's not considered to have separated. It's the shchita of the mother. I'm sorry, the shchita not of the mother of the actual animal will affect it that it will not be considered to be Ever Menachai. My time in the Rabbi Yochanan. What's the reasoning of Rabbi Yochanan? I'll leave it to Rabbi Meir. According to Rabbi Meir, that he's saying that, which is really what we said before, that he says that the aver of the uber is going to be an avela, but this is not. There's going to be a mechalik that since this aver is part of the goof of the animal, so when you shech the animal, that's enough to remove the din of nevela. But the aver of the uber is not part of the body of the mother that you're shechting, and therefore it becomes an avela. Amar Rabbi Yosef, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Hakol moedim shemisa oisenifel ve'ein shchita oisenifel. Everyone will agree. This until now we've been talking about where you shecht the animal, and it has an aver meduldol. So we're saying that everyone will agree in that case, both the Rebbe and the Chachamim, that it's not going to be oisenipol, it's not going to have a din of it. But Misa, Rabbi Yitzchak Bar Yosef says, B'Shem Rabbi Yochanan, if the animal dies not with a shchita, then that will be aser with the isin of it. So Rashi says, what's an afkamina of whether it's oisenipol or not? Lamaisa, this animal died. So why is it any worse? Obviously, it's an avela. So why would this aver be any different? So Rashi shemisa oisenipol eva maduldu b'mehema umesa hamisa mapelas oisai. The misa separates it. Ve'einu metama ke'eva min hanavela like even achai. The nafkamina is going to be if misa mapelas. If it's treated as it separated it, then it's no longer going to be part of the animal that died, but rather it's going to be an aver menachai. It's going to be a separate aver, right? This is an aver hamadoldo that was separated, so it keeps the status of an aver menachai. That even though it wasn't fully separated, but now when it dies, it's considered to be fully separated. It's an aver menachai. What's the difference between an aver menachai and a vela? We keep on saying they both are matama. The difference is that if you have an aver menachai, has to be a full aver. If you take a little bit of basar from an Ever Menachai, it's not Matama. Masha'in gave from an Avela, any piece of basar from an Avela is going to be Matama. So that's what Rashi says. Sakuma, the Mayaskin, what are we talking about? Ilaim be'Ever de Uber. What are you talking about? If you say you're talking about, right, I said a little bit more. We didn't say what we're talking about. So the Gemara clarifies, what are we talking about? The Mayaskin. If we're talking about the Ever over, that was the original Mishnah that we were arguing about. So how could you say that they all agree on that? They obviously are arguing about it. Ella be'Ever de behema. We're talking about the Ever hameduldal of a behema. And that's what that Rabbi Yochanan is saying, that if it dies, they're both going to agree that it's considered to have fallen off and it's going to remain an Ever Menachai. And if you have a Shchita, like Rabbi Yochanan had said, everyone's going to agree it's Ein Nipul. It's not considered to have separated. Zak Gemara, Misa Tchina, Shchita Tchina. Both of these dinim that he's trying to be Mechadish, that the Rabbi Yitzchak Bar Yosef is saying b'shem Rabbi Yochanan, we have mishnayos to them. Misa Tnina, we see this about Misa, Mesa Habehema, if an animal died, What animal? Mesa behema shahayu ba'aver ubasa medudal. Like we said, it had a behema which it had both an aver that was hanging as well as it had some dangling basa. So we say habasa tzarich hechsher. The basar does not automatically have a din nevela, but rather you need it first. It's like any other eiflin that it has to first become hoksher with a liquid. For aver mitama mishum aver minachai. But the aver has a din of aver minachai. It doesn't require any additional hechsher in order for it to be tummy. The ene mitama mishum aver minanavela. Divrei Meir. So you see, Ramey is saying that it becomes mishum aver minanavela if it's mesa. This is talking about a case of mesa, and we say the aver hamadodol gets a din of mesa. It gets a din, I'm sorry, of nevela. Mishum aver minachai and not als nevela, which is what we said the nafkamina would be if we say mesa is mishum is considered to be nipple. It's considered to be separated against the din of aver minachai. Shchita namitina, and the din of shchita is also stated in a Mishnah that we said shchita is ein nipple. Well, where do we see that? Nishchat a behema. If you shecht a behema again with basar and behema and an aver medoldol, hoksheru bedomeh. Divrei Meir. It becomes hoksher. It becomes hoksher with the dam of that behema. That means that dam of that behema is the liquid that's mitar. So you see, it's not considered to be nipple. It's not considered to be eva menacha. They're meir. Shimon oimer lo hoksher. If Shimon says no, the dam is not able to be machsher. In any case, you see according to Meir that you need that the dam has to be mitamed. It's not considered to be eva menacha. It's not considered to be tamei already. So no, you can't bring a raya for those mishnayos. We still needed this statement. Maybe that which we said, that it's hoksher l'tuma, it means it's not talking about. We said that the mishnayos are talking about both aver medoldol as well as basa medoldol. We could say that shchita does make nipple from the aver medodol and the basar medodol. So therefore, the basar would have a din of aver menachai, but not the basar, the aver would have din of aver menachai, but the basar cannot have a din of aver menachai. It's not an aver; it's just basar. So that's what Rameh is coming to say. He's just coming to tell you that the dam of that behema will be considered the liquid that's makshir the basar for tuma, but the aver itself would have maybe a din of would be tamet, even though it had a shchita. So therefore, that's why we needed this membra to tell us that shchita is ein nipple, that it's not considered to be aver menachai. How can you say it's only telling you the din of the basar? It said in the Mishnah hoksheru. It said a plural lashon, which is going on both the basar as well as the aver. So no, not necessarily. That's not necessarily telling you that in we're talking about two separate things. We're not talking about the aver itself. We're talking about basar that came from that aver. That means the aver itself possibly, even though it says a multiple lashon, maybe the aver itself is considered to be aver chai, but the basar that came from that aver does not have a din of aver menachai. So that's what the Mishnah is telling you, that that both of them are hokshu. Dr. Maru, my oma the high mehai. Why do we have to tell you the basar of the aver any different than the basar of the behem itself? The Masag the Chamina, hoyel matama tuma chamura agav aviv, ema loy liboy hechsher. I might say, since the aver menachai has the din of aver menachai as the basar, as the aver, so that already brings it to the din of nevela. So maybe it doesn't need the hechsher of the dam. It already has like a step up in the tumah. It's coming from something that's aver menachai, which is nevela. So therefore, it doesn't need a hechsher with dam. Kamashmalan. So that's why he had to say Huchsharu, but Ein Chanami, the Aver itself does not need anything to tell it to you, and you would see that this halacha. Amar Rav Yosef Nekaita Rav Yitzchak Bar Yosef Biyadcha L'chayru. Rav Yitzchak Bar Yosef said that that the shchita is ein nipol, is not considered to be separated, and mesa is considered to be separated. L'chayru, it's correct. The Rabbi Bar Chana koi kavase. Rabbi Bar Chana agrees from the Tanya. Ubasa b'stei treifa lo teichelu. The pasuk says a basar in a sada that's treifa you shouldn't eat. Lahavia eva v'abasar hamdudolim b'behema b'chaya boy. It's coming to tell you that the aver and the basar that are hanging off of behema and chaya knife v'shachton shein asurin. It's coming to tell you that they're asur. It's considered to be asur like a treifa. And he says on this, he says this is only a derabanan, meaning since it was shachet, therefore it doesn't have the din of Eva Menachai deraisa, which is what Rav Yitzchak Bar Yosef was telling us, that shchait is ein nipol. It doesn't have the din of Eva Menachai, but it's only midirabanan. Midirabanan they were misakin that you can't eat the Eva Medoldol as well as the Basa Medoldol. Okay, I think we'll have to stop over here. This is quite enough for a Motzei Shabbos.
Shkoyach.
Good luck, Shkoyach.
Well, great to see everyone.